Good evening. We are so glad that you can be here with us. We have a special evening in store for you. I'm Carla Baer. I have the privilege of being a chair of your board of directors for the UU Urban Ministry, and it is now my privilege to welcome our Reverend Mary Margaret Earl, our senior minister and executive director, who will offer our invocation.
Thank you, Carla. This evening, we gather in the spirit of tradition, the 189th such gathering. We gather in the present moment, pausing at the crest of a hill and taking time to breathe and recognize just where we stand. We gather with hope for the future, ever knowing that change is possible and change must come. May we celebrate the opportunity to draw in together again, to be in community in shared vision. May we gather in gratitude for the gift of this wide open tent, where there is space for each of us to bring our song. Come, let us gather in commitment and shared purpose and in joy. It is so good to be here with you again this evening. Annual meeting is a business meeting, but in our UU Urban Ministry tradition, it is more than that. It is a time to look back and to celebrate the work that we've accomplished together. And there is much for us to celebrate this year. This past church year, I was again honored to visit some of our member UU congregations to preach on the work of the urban ministry. It's always a joy to come and strengthen our connections. My theme this year was "The way is long," because when we're speaking of justice work, of course it is. Of course, it's long. Justice in Greater Boston has always been the aimed for destination of the urban ministry since its founding nearly 2 centuries ago. And our journey has included building elder housing, creating free legal clinics, building a food pantry, an emergency shelter. Our work, though, turned a corner a few years ago when you, our delegates, adopted a new mission. A mission to work across race and place, to dismantle racism and white supremacy culture, and to advance racial, economic, and social justice. And we envisioned a greater Boston where all people live with freedom and dignity and have equitable access to resources and an opportunity to shape the present and the future. This call was bold and full of energy and purpose. But as we turned the corner to live into those words, the road was shrouded in new morning mist. Which way would it lead? How do we get there? How would we live into those words? It was up to us, all of us, board members, delegates, staff, to figure that out. The way is long, but together we have been walking it. And tonight, we celebrate the distance we have come this year. This year, we move toward completion of the restoration of our historic meeting house, Boston's oldest surviving wood frame church, and now a Boston landmark. You may have seen images of the stunning transformation of what had been a peeling, flaking, cold sanctuary. Now the sprinkler system, a new audio-visual system, a disabled accessible entrance, all are nearing completion. And we've begun planning a year of celebration ahead for what will be an important gathering place, a place to serve and to celebrate Roxbury. This year, we leaned into our commitment to interrogate the history of First Church Roxbury. After publishing our report on the history of enslavement last spring, with the Roxbury Historical Society, we formed a community-based history committee. That group this year advanced our work to research the lives of enslaved people named in the report, and we were proud to secure funding from the highly competitive Harvard Reparative Partnership Program, which recognizes the importance of the repair work that we have undertaken. The history of this building and its original congregation also shaped the justice work of the young people in our after-school program for Boston High School students. Young people are creating a new tour of the meeting house to offer when we reopen. Young people too created a play performed for the community that began with the enslavement report and led into the work of the urban ministry today. Those were just some of the projects that blossomed within a strengthened and broadened youth program. This year, we increased the number of students in our program and also created a career exploration pathway in which young people learn professional skills by working with our leadership staff. Young people learned to lead tours of the urban ministry. They'll continue leading tours of Roxbury this summer. And they also led a community conversation webinar about the history of housing injustice in Boston and what can be done about it now. We have been moving young people and their voices to the center of our work. This year, we also leaned into our vision of the urban ministry as a connector at the intersection of communities, a place where we can stand with Roxbury community partners to advance and amplify their work and to harness the potential of UU congregations in that work. Our Congregational Engagement Task Force continued engaging you in this new vision and mission, and you'll hear from our board member, the Reverend Dave Egan, about the fruits of this work, including a new delegate job description. This year, we hired a skilled and experienced Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Tricia Brennan, to help us operationalize this new congregational engagement, helping us imagine what churches can do directly to make a difference in Roxbury and Greater Boston. In all of this work, we are making our mission real, creating concrete ways that young people are shaping the present and the future, concrete ways that we are working across race and place to dismantle racism, specific ways that we are working for racial, economic, and social justice. On a long journey, we have come to the crest of a hill when we've climbed a while and we look ahead and we can see all the miles before us. The way is still long, but this moment at the crest is also an invitation to pause, to glance back for a moment and say, yes, we have come somewhere. We can do this. May we this evening pause and celebrate the work that we all do at the Urban Ministry. Welcome, friends. It is my pleasure now to introduce some of the staff of the UU Urban Ministry who are going to share more about their work. It is my joy to work alongside talented, committed, and collaborative staff who are making important and transformational work possible. So first, at Renewal House. Among our oldest programs is our Renewal House Shelter for Survivors of Domestic Violence. Founded more than 40 years ago when the field of domestic violence was emerging and organized shelters were just opening. Now, our program is guided with new energy and vision by shelter manager Marie Padilla. Marie brings a spirit of collaboration, ambitious goal setting, and creativity, including envisioning a compelling art show held this year that transformed the stories of survivors into sculpture and spoken word. It is my pleasure to introduce Marie.
Good evening, everyone. As Mary Margaret said, I'm Marie Padilla, Shelter Manager for Renewal House. I want to report in the past year since our last reporting, we've added relief staff to our team, and we continue to hire to ensure the 24-hour coverage that we need in the shelter. So we are still hiring just to be able to provide that need when needed. Since our last reporting as well, we were able to provide a safety plan for a mother who called SafeLink, the National Domestic Violence Hotline, seeking help. She lived in the Dominican Republic and was in an abusive situation. I was able to, after speaking with her for 3 weeks and planning, do the safety plan for her to board on a plane and come to the US. She was able to do that safely with her daughter. And upon coming to the US immediately, we provided a room for mom and daughter, all the essentials that they needed. We gave we case managed them, and we gave them resources for the things that we couldn't provide. We outsourced them out. We were able to connect them with housing, and they have been housed. We provided furniture upon their moving out, and the family, they're doing pretty good. Mom has a job with the JetBlue, and daughter is transitioning into college, so they're doing very well. We experienced some difficulty with some of our guests by way of meeting their goals and things like that. They seem a bit unmotivated because living in shelter sometimes, and obviously going through domestic violence, is not, it's a battle every single day. So I decided to shift the focus from just meeting the basic needs of the families, but honing more in on short-term and long-term goals. And so also with accountability from the previous goals, while we were case managing. So we focused very heavily on that. And so now all of our guests in our shelter, they're all working and they're all in school. We did some updating and maintenance around the shelter. We painted every single wall of the shelter. We sanded down some water damage that we had. We repaired most of our cabinets that, all of them had like a small issue, but we were able to tackle that, and we covered holes from, protection from rodents that we were experiencing in the shelter due to just the way the building is and the location. So we also hosted a visual art exhibit centered around DV, titled Beauty for Ashes. I came up with this vision as a way to allow the donors and the sponsors to be able to hear the stories of the survivors that they pour into, due to the anonymity of the program and the confidentiality. They don't get to speak to these people that they pour into. So I decided this would be a good way for them to hear the stories, and also just offer the guest a way to be able to tell their stories with minimal impact of having to live through the situation. So I figured art would be a good way to do that. And so our interns, they provided a 2-minute they put together a 2-minute video of the event. So I'm going to turn this over to Vinny so he can play the video for us.
How has the representation of your story into an art piece impacted you?
It felt liberating to tell my story. I was able to see how far I've come. What at one point in my life what had felt shameful to say turned into a testimony to help someone else overcome their experience with domestic violence.
What are some words of encouragement you would give to someone who feels hopeless in situations of domestic violence?
You don't have to do this alone. There is help out there for you. This does not have to be the end of your story. There is light at the end of the tunnel.
You.
Sorry, guys, very impactful video. This concludes the presentation for Renewal House, and I will now pass it over to Mary Margaret.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you for all your work in the past year. And one of the people who attended the art show said it was one of the most compelling events that they've ever attended at the Urban Ministry. So thank you for all your vision behind that. Now it is, next I would like to introduce Reggie Walker, who joined us a year ago as an interim community engagement manager and then moved into his role of Roxbury Youth Programs Manager. And it's amazing that he just began 1 year ago because he has helped accomplish so much. He's brought his love of history, his commitment to young people, and a vision for justice work with him. Under his leadership, young people have helped to reimagine our Seeing Me in the World program for Unitarian Universalist youth, helping to spark a broad interest in Greater Boston and beyond in the program. He helped to nurture our new career exploration pathway and has worked across programs to advance our work, bringing a wonderful spirit of collaboration. So I'm happy to introduce him. Turning it over to you, Reggie.
Hi, thank you for your kind words, Mary Margaret, and thank you all for being here today. As Mary Margaret stated, my name is Reggie Walker. I am the current RYP manager, and I also manage the Forest program. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about RYP. So currently RYP is supporting 30 young folks from all around Boston, but mainly from John D. O'Brien High School, Dearborn STEM Academy, and Netco schools. And we've been able to work with SuccessLink and Boston PIC to help fund our young people this year. Some highlights from the year. Towards the beginning of the year, we hosted a rock painting workshop with a local coach named Coach Bree. She brought in rocks for the young folks to paint and encourage students to distribute them throughout the community, which they have. And the intended idea is for when people are walking down the street or in their neighborhoods, they'll see a colorful rock, and if they pick it up, they'll receive an encouraging message from one of our young folks in the program. Another program that we've been working on are financial literacy sessions with Betsy Taylor, a member of one of our congregations. She hosted 4 sessions, one on money matters, credit cards and credit scores, the concept of a bank versus a credit union, and wise ways to take out a loan. And we've seen a lot of positive impact from those workshops from our young folks, and have just taught them how to be better with their money. And lastly, we've been having weekly breakout groups, such as a Bible podcast that has been put together by a couple of our students here, student council who works with me to create programming that's interesting to them, and a mural painting group, which is refreshing the mural that we have located in our Peace Garden area, and of course, many other workshops as well. In addition to our amazing programming, we have daily homework support from Boston College. We have 4 Pulse students who come in. Pulse is a program at Boston College that provides freshmen with credits to support community initiatives, and we're very blessed to receive 4 students again this year who are amazing, have made very unique and strong connections with our students, as well as support drop-in hours for students that are not a part of this program. Many students bring their friends or other youth from the community that like to stop in, and they're also happy to receive some of that work. And our last big program for the year, local actor Naheem Garcia worked with us to develop a unique play here called Roxbury Day at the White Church. Naheem has been featured in plays such as the August Wilson play that was just performed at Hibernian Hall, as well as many big silver screen budget movies. He's amazing, and we're happy to have him for this year. And we had very strong attendance for that show that we did last week. And next, to talk a little bit about our youth program, I'd like to introduce Wintana. Wintana has been with us for a couple years here at the program. She's going to share a little bit about her experience in RYP. So handing it over to you, Wintana.
Hello. So my name's Wintana, and I've been at RYP since about 2021 in 9th grade. RYP has been like a second home for me. I've been coming here every day, almost every day after school from about 2 to 6. So our program starts, or the drop-in program's at 2, and then the actual internship would begin at 4. And what we've done a couple different programs like Reggie was talking about. We usually focus either on photography or photography to show social justice and work in our communities. And yeah, I enjoy coming here. We have free meals every day, ride homes, and our managers Reggie and Elsie really make it a place that you want to be at. You learn a lot of new things. The homework help and support is amazing, and every day you genuinely learn something new, and you just get closer with the community and the people here. So it's an amazing experience, and yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Wintana. And like I said, Wintana's been with us for a couple of years. She's one of the strongest youth in our program. So thank you, Wintana, for those words. Next, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Seeing Me in the World. Seeing Me in the World is a program that we've had at the Urban Ministry since 2017. And I was tasked with revitalizing it a little bit this year. And I worked with one of our young interns, Sophia Taporta, to refresh the program and really introduce themes of community and how young folks can be agents of change in our community. We've been thankful to welcome 5 different tour groups from all around Boston and from the greater United States area, as you'll see in a little while when I introduce eyewitness account for us. But it's very focused on, like I said, community and encouraging young folks to find all the amazing parts in their community and come together to help change the world. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Shannon Sneidman, who attended a See Me in the World session 2 weeks ago and was able to bring a group all the way from Michigan. So with that being said, hand it over to Shannon.
Hi, everyone. Yes, so I'm Shannon Sneidman. I'm the Director of Religious Education at the Birmingham Unitarian Church in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. And so this was our first year doing a coming of age heritage trip. It's the first one since 2019. And this is a trip that's been a cornerstone of this particular congregation's rite of passage for decades. So it was kind of a big deal. And for those that aren't familiar, a coming of age trip explores UU history, theology, a bunch of different things. And it's a way for our youth to develop a statement of their beliefs, or what we call a credo. And so they'll share this at a worship service at the end of the program year. And part of this experience typically includes a heritage trip or a pilgrimage to explore UU history in another part of the country. And going on this trip is something a lot of UU congregations have done before, prior to the start of the pandemic, often visiting Boston, sometimes going to Chicago, but Boston is a very popular choice because of just this rich Unitarian and Universalist history. And it's just sprinkled throughout Boston and also, up in Concord, Salem, things like that. So our program, unfortunately, had to be suspended, and it was restructured as a result of the pandemic. But this year we ran it, and we had 2 ninth graders. And after working with them over the course of the year, their advisor and I decided that this particular trip to Boston should really be focused on giving them more opportunities to lead and take direction, giving us kind of the idea of what they want to do. But in addition to learning more about Unitarian Universalist history and heritage. So how this all started was a colleague of mine at the First UU Society in Newton shared a post about the UU Urban Ministry and a webinar that they were hosting about this program, Seeing Me in the World. And after attending the webinar, I was instantly hooked. It became my top priority for us to figure out a way to work this into our itinerary, specifically because it was a program that was not only led by youth, but designed by youth too. And so we were really fortunate to have Sophia, one of the youth participants and the one that designed the program too. She ran over after school on a Friday and gave our group a tour. And it was really great for our group, our youth, to be able to spend some time with another young person and having her share her community with us. And so she shared a bunch of different sites that exemplified key areas of her program design, art, culture, empowerment, and oh gosh, I'm forgetting the fourth one, but it was really, really, really fantastic, nonetheless. And going on this tour early really helped set us up for conversations later on. While we're walking around, she shared more about specifically the Roxbury community and how it's faced challenges from folks outside the community wanting to change things, but also how the members of the Roxbury community have fought back to preserve and build what is going to be best for those living in Roxbury. So a couple of the things that stand out are the history of Nubian Square, how it was previously named Dudley Square, and certainly learning more about the Eustis Street Firehouse. Those stops stood out in particular, but this really became the conversations that came out of this became a common thread throughout the rest of our trip and allowed us to connect back to our community at home. We are a congregation that is just a few miles outside of Detroit, which has a history of racism, redlining, and gentrification that, while we are familiar with, we continue to discover just how deeply ingrained it is. And so a few years ago, actually, our youth group led our congregation to adopt what we know as the eighth principle. And that is this commitment to building a diverse, multicultural community, but by taking action and dismantling racism and other oppressions. So this was a wonderful way to connect our youth with the work that other youth are doing, and youth who are just a little bit older than them, that are, they're part of our global community, but also the youth that are right in our own community too. And we hope that this experience empowers them to continue to do that work in their own communities in the future. One other stop that I wanted to highlight was our stop to the Frugal Bookstore, and that our youth said they could have spent hours there. And so that, thinking about next time, this is definitely something that I'm going to build in, is spending more time in Roxbury, and certainly having that opportunity to hang out with the UU Urban Ministry again. And I will do my part to continue to advocate that other groups who are visiting Boston take this opportunity to spend some time with the UU Urban Ministry, definitely with the Seeing Me in the World program. And so a huge thank you again to Sophia, Reggie, Reverend Mary Margaret, and everyone else for making this happen for us. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Reggie.
Thank you so much, Shannon, for your kind words, and it was great hosting you. As Shannon mentioned, at the core of Seeing Me in the World, it is a tour. And as well as that tour, we offer several other tours, including Trees at John Eliot Square, hosted by Thomas Plant, who is here this evening. Public Art Tour, which is hosted by Diane Walters, a local artist in the area. The Economic Pilot Tour, which is hosted by Curtis Santos, our community engagement manager. And fourth tour, Educational Institutions of Roxbury, which is hosted by our young folks here at the Urban Ministry. That schedule has been completed, sent it out to tour guides to be analyzed, and that will be out to you shortly. So we're looking forward to welcoming you for another great season of tours, and we're happy to have you. And with that being said, I will hand it back over to Mary Margaret, and thank you all so much for listening to all the great things that our young folks are doing.
Thank you, Reggie, and thanks for all your work. So now I am delighted to introduce two colleagues who are representing two cornerstones of our work, and they are Monique Marshall-Veal and the Reverend Tricia Brennan. Reverend Tricia Brennan, as I mentioned, joined us several months ago as an interim congregational partnerships consultant. She brought with her a deep understanding of our Unitarian Universalist congregations, a commitment to justice, and a wisdom in how we can move with purpose and also with care. Monique Marshall-Veal has served at the Urban Ministry for about a dozen years. She began as the manager of our youth program, and she has worked in community engagement and special projects, and she has been my steadfast collaborator in our community conversation series. She brings a deep understanding of what it means to work across race and across neighborhood for justice, and she speaks the truth with love. Tonight, we invited them to come together to have a conversation about what it really means for us to advance our work across race and place. So I'm pleased to welcome both of them to our annual meeting. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you, Mary Margaret, for having us. So thank you, Tricia, for joining me. And as I think about our mission and vision at Urban Ministry and all the years that I have been there, I'm reminded of how community engagement at Urban Ministry has evolved over the years. And I'm reminded about the intentional work required to build trust and connect communities. And I know and understand how essential it is to utilize inclusive conversations to help Urban Ministry understand the needs of the Boston communities that we partner with. And I know that we're working really hard to try and find meaningful ways for our member congregations to volunteer and support the work that we're doing with our community partners in culturally responsive ways. And I know, Tricia, that you have worked with Curtis Santos to help us develop kind of a community engagement model that supports our goals and meets community expectations. Would you mind sharing a little snapshot about the work that you and Curtis have done to enhance collaboration between Urban Ministry, community partners, and member congregations?
Sure, Monique, I would be glad to. So when, first I want to say that I was impressed when I began at Urban Ministry that, you know, I'm here to around the volunteer program, and that it had gone pretty quiet over COVID, understandably. And instead of just going back and doing the same thing, the question was asked here at Urban Ministry, how can we do this in a way that really is more in keeping with our mission, a fairly new mission, or a deeper mission. And so that was the invitation to come and help reimagine and restart that here at Urban Ministry. I think it's worth me saying a few things that were so clear at the beginning. The decision was made that, and it's a big decision. At first, it seemed to me like, oh, that sounds good, that's natural, but it's big, which is to invite volunteers to not only come and support the work that's happening at Urban Ministry, but to also support the partner organizations in the Roxbury community. There's a lot of organizations that Urban Ministry has strong relationships with, and the choice was made to focus on 4 of them. And I'm just going to mention them quickly. One is the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, and I think most people are familiar with that, mainly through the Mother's Day Walk for Peace, which lots of congregations are active in. City Life Vida Urbana is a wonderful tenants' rights organization fighting to keep tenants in their home on a lot of different levels. Page Academy is a really great elementary school just up the street. And I learned recently that its founders, Sister Angela and Brother Joe Cook, were actually pastors at First Church Roxbury way back when it was a functioning congregation. And then lastly, Dee Dee's Cry, which was founded in 2017 by Toy Burton. And it's a suicide prevention organization. Toy lost her sister, Dee Dee, to suicide. And she's just, you know, and that was a while ago, and she's been on a journey of her own healing, but also supporting others in their efforts to at times stay alive and in some cases be recovering from the loss of a loved one. And she felt that there just wasn't something here in the community that served that purpose, specifically for folks of color. So she founded that. And so those are the four. And the invitation out into our congregations is to come. And now that is a big deal. I mean, it's moving off the hill out into the community, and there's lots of stuff to think about with that. And one more thing I want to say around those four organizations is the vision is to do many things, but one is to create circles of support that are really there to support the organization as they name how they need that support. And we're doing that one at a time. We've almost got one ready, or it got the full complement of people in that to begin working with Toy Burton at Dee Dee's Cry. So I'm excited about all that, all that's bubbling, all that is coming into being.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate the partnerships that you just mentioned and the work that you and Curtis have already started to try to, get us connected with congregations and with more community partners. So thank you for that work. I do have a question though. Again, as Mary Margaret mentioned, I've probably been connected to a few different parts of the urban ministry, and I've learned a lot and been able to think about and reflect, especially as I remember how folks would come in and volunteer and would want to come into urban ministry to connect with people of color and to do the good work. And I also know that the surrounding communities also really wanted to know that their voices were being heard, about their needs, and that there was respect being given. How do you think we could ensure that folks who are coming to urban ministry do the personal work to help urban ministry build and sustain partnerships and volunteer opportunities while rebuilding trust with the surrounding community?
Yeah, it's such a good question and such an important question. It's such key to this work. Well, I don't have all the answers. I do think that the how is it? Interventions, is that the right word? But the way to bring that about is multi-layered. I will say that as someone who's been connected with urban ministry in the congregations over the years, I feel like it's much clearer here now what it's all about. So when volunteers come in from the congregations, I think I'm hoping at any rate that they have a clearer sense that this mission is for real. And this working across race and place is a really important, energizing and focusing piece of the work. So that's important. Obviously doing, I think training, we think that, oh, training. Well, no, training can really matter. If training is done well and done regularly, and it can dive into these issues that you're addressing and enable people to really share their ideas, to engage in that, to learn more, to practice skills. I think that's got to be part of what the experience is for volunteers coming in. I would really like to see a place for volunteers to meet monthly, probably online, and share their experiences, share what they feel really great about, where they've been touched, and also share the times they feel like, gosh, I really don't think I handled that well. I think that was a microaggression. I wonder, how do I repair that? And to talk that through with others. I think that would be a really good thing. I would like to see people have an opportunity to look at how this is separate from the monthly meetings I was just talking about, but I don't know, if people come at it at times from their faith, and like, what's a way to look at how the faith underpins the work here, and giving some time for that. I mean, I'll stop with that, and I'm aware we don't have forever, and this is a conversation you and I can keep on going. But I think that we haven't said that word partnership, have we? I mean, to me, that is the word, because it implies strength and strength coming together.
Yes.
Creating what the world we want to have. And I guess the last thing I'll say, and then you say your thing, whatever that would be, is that there is such a need for connection in this world. We need more and more connection, not less. And my impression of the urban ministry now that I get to be here is so much as a place of, reaching out and creating connections in very important ways.
Thank you. The only thing I would add or reemphasize is that need for active listening on all sides, so that folks really feel like they're being heard, and then creating that space for open dialogue, for learning and reflecting. So thank you. I look forward to continuing our work together. And to close our conversation, we have a montage of our current season of community conversations this year. So please enjoy, and thank you for joining us.
How has Boston gotten away with being segregated for so long? It's important to just, in all of this discussion, to understand how natural racial segregation was considered. Between Reconstruction, the end of Reconstruction, nothing political was done to benefit Black people until the New Deal. But in Boston is a perfect example of that segregation from the very beginning. It never dawned on white people in this city that you would build housing that would be available for both. There were very few cities where white people were supported by the government and by major economic institutions to be and continue to be racist.
One thing that surprised me coming out of the focus groups especially was hearing about kind of how difficult it is to navigate the process from whichever entry point you have. So when someone goes to purchase a home, there's no systematic way where they, step one, talk to this person, and then step two, go to that resource. It's more kind of ad hoc. So maybe you might ask your cousin who bought a home, how did they go about it? Or maybe there's a broker that someone recommended, and so you go to them first. And there's really no guarantee that you'll kind of learn all these tricks or learn about all these programs.
I agree with you. Having gone through that process and having friends and family members, it was a very different experience for me versus my white friends who were buying in other communities. So absolutely, I think there needs to be more support and just transparency as well with the housing process, because so many people just don't know and are not educated enough to know about what resources and programming are out there.
As far as I'm concerned, there's a need to promote the opportunity to move. But the larger problem I think we face, and it has to do with these last 55 years of not having done the work we need to do, either to open up the suburbs or to is the right to stay. If the cities are rich and vibrant places, these are home. This is home. Just, to have to move is a form of violence, right? It's a violation and a violence to say that in order to have access to what white people have, you have to be with white people. That's the definition of that. That is racism.
Fundamentally, the root cause of the racial homeownership gap and the associated racial wealth gap is public policy. The racial homeownership gap is caused by laws and policies and practices in our public institutions.
We would like for the folks that created housing discrimination and perpetuated it, and our research substantiates it, to bear the cost of that, to allow folks to gain some of this equity appreciation from their homes, and for the folks that created the situation that we're in currently with the homeownership and the racial wealth gap, that's their restorative piece.
The system is not working for people, right? There's a reason that housing is the #1 issue across the Commonwealth. And it's because our current system of housing that's for profit, not for people, is not serving the needs of anyone, and particularly of, BIPOC and working class communities.
A family we just hosted that had parents and 3 kids finally were able to, as of now, rent a studio apartment for a family of 5. Everyone should have a safe, secure house that is a home.
A lot of the solutions take time, but what we're clear about exactly is that we also need to keep folks here now, right? Because these are our communities and these are the folks who deserve to be part of building that future.
Hats off to the young people who have been getting ready for tonight and trying to figure out what they want to say about the issue of housing, which has been our theme, but we're going to step back and not talk so much as to listen.
My name's Naya and I'm a sophomore. I go to Dearborn STEM Academy. And hi, I'm Sarah. I'm an 8th grader at Dearborn STEM Academy.
Hi, I'm Lanaya Sanders. I'm a sophomore at Dearborn STEM.
Hello, my name is Zaire and I'm in 8th grade. I go to Dearborn STEM Academy. Along the way of this projects and studying all the information, I learned the deeper meaning of redlining and how far back it goes and how it still affects our community today. Also, the deeper meaning of affordable housing and just housing in general.
Housing is a quality of life that everybody should have a right to and everybody should have access to. It shouldn't be something that you should be denied of or something that is closed off to you.
It's a pleasure to share just a bit of the span of work that's been accomplished over the past year by all the extraordinary staff that I have the gift and privilege to work with. And now I am going to turn the rest of the meeting over to our board of directors, who I'm also proud to work in partnership with. The board is made up of board members of many abilities, expertise, backgrounds, but what they all have in common is a commitment to this work, to the urban ministry, and to making change. And so I'm happy to introduce Lisa Snellings.
Good evening, everyone. Can you, am I on screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm Lisa Snellings. I'm a member of the board of directors. I just want to say to the staff and to our executive director, thank you for those presentations. It was really moving to just have this incredible overview reminder of all the work that's been accomplished this year. Folks have worked so hard and it was just wonderful to see. So thank you very much. I have the honor of chairing the board nominating and development committee. And in that work, I've been supported this year with other members of the board of directors. I want to thank John Hickey, Marissa Luce, Marshall Hughes, and Carol Lowy for their steady work this year to support our efforts to recruit and bring new members onto the board of directors, and also to provide some enrichment for the directors as well. In the annual report, you'll see that one of a couple of projects we did this year, nominating committee helped to bring anti-racism training, Jubilee 3 anti-racism training to the urban ministry. And I want to thank our member congregations and delegates for many of which were able to attend the training for making that happen. So thank you for being here for that, some of you. We also worked on board member expectations to clarify and strengthen those expectations as we live into our new mission and vision. And we were able to engage in some conversations at all of our board meetings on characteristics of white supremacy culture, and to begin to both build connection and build understanding among board members as we live into our new mission and vision. So tonight, the nominating committee has a bit of business to bring to you, our delegates, to help us to continue to operate as an organization. And I'd like to start with election of delegates at large. These are delegates that aren't necessarily affiliated by a particular with a particular congregation, but are voting delegates. And I believe there's a slide. Here we go. These are our delegates at large this year, and we'll be calling for a vote by you, the delegates, to elect these folks to serve as delegates at large. Marcia Buttman, Peter Cocoluto, Reverend John Hickey, Mr. Marshall Hughes, Reverend Chris Jablonski, Ms. Ruby Jordan Borges, Mr. Brian Keith, Ms. Jean Krasno, Ms. Marissa Luce, Ms. Christine Nelson, Thomas Plant, Ms. Shayla Porter, Doug Putas, Tom Roos, and myself, Lisa Snellings.
May I have a motion to elect the delegates at large as recommended by the nominating committee?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Lisa. And a second?
I second.
Great. I think Vinny's going to put the poll on so that we can invite you as our delegates to take action and vote. And it is a unanimous vote. And so congratulations to the delegates at large, whom the delegates have elected. Lisa?
Great, thank you, Carla. And now we'll move to election of new members of the board of directors. But first, I would like to just pause and thank two long-standing members of the board of directors who are stepping off after 9 and 7 years of incredible service, and even beyond that, before they were members of the board of directors, incredible contributions to the organization. I want to thank Reverend John Hickey, who is leaving the board after 7 years of service, and was our executive director prior to joining the board. And while we plan to give him a little bit of a break, I think he's going to stay engaged in many ways with the urban ministry. And also Carol Lowy, who I have had the privilege of working with very closely during her summer. We only overlap for some years. Carol has served 9 years on the board of directors. And during that time, I had the pleasure of working with her on the John Elliott Corporation board and on nominating committee. And she's been deeply involved in our meeting house work and the Peace Garden as well. So Carol, thank you. And I'm delighted that both of you will continue to serve as delegates and be involved in the urban ministry. And I also just want to pause and recognize the passing of Tony Rodriguez, who had just joined the board last year and passed this year. And he was an incredible social justice warrior. We were all so excited to get to work with him, and we miss him and feel his presence at the urban ministry. So with those words of gratitude, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the two outstanding candidates that we're bringing to you to consider and vote for to join the board of directors this coming year. We're very excited about our candidates. There's this biography information's in the annual report, but if you'll indulge me, I'm gonna sing their praises a little bit so that you can get to know them in this meeting. And I believe they're here tonight as well. So first, Ruby Jordan Borges grew up in Roxbury. She went to the John D. O'Brien High School. She also was a Roxbury Youth Program participant from 2015 to 2019. She attended UMass Lowell, where she studied environmental science with 2 minors in sociology, climate change, and sustainability. She graduated in 2023, and she now works at Boston Public Schools as a George B. Cox Fellow with the program Teacher Cadet, which focuses on recruiting high school students of color to serve in the teaching field. Super excited that Ruby has agreed to accept this nomination. Our second candidate for your consideration is Reverend Chris Jablonski. He has served First Church UU in Belmont since August of 2018. Chris is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist who grew up in the Framingham UU Church. Before Belmont, he served the Portsmouth UU Church as a co-minister with his wife, Lauren. And before that, he was the Minister of Religious Education at the UU Church in Berkeley, California. He's a fly fisherman. I think he just got back from a fishing trip. A lover of wilderness, a beaming father of 3 amazing kids. And he's also blessed to be the spouse and beloved of an incredible person, Reverend Lauren Smith, who serves the UUA as the Director of Stewardship and Development. So with that, Carla, would you like to ask?
Yes, I would like a motion to elect the 2 new directors as recommended by the nominating committee. Do I have a motion?
I will make the motion to elect Ruby and Chris to join the board of directors.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Tom. So we can put the poll up, Vinny. Thank you. Oops. Am I the only person that lost the poll? Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you. Chris and Ruby are elected as new directors. Congratulations. Lisa, I think you have one more piece of business.
Great. Thank you, and welcome Ruby and Chris. We look forward to seeing you at our first board meeting in June. So finally, the bylaws call for the delegates to elect the members of the nominating committee. And we have 3 nominees for the nominating committee that we would like your vote on. The first is Mr. Marshall Hughes, who's served on the committee for several years with me, ably, and Ms. Marissa Luce and myself, 2 candidates for the nominating committee.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to elect those 3 folks as our nominating committee?
I will elect Marshall, Marissa, and myself to serve on the nominating committee this coming year.
Thank you. And a second?
I second.
Tom, thank you. All right, call for the vote. Thank you. And thank you, Vinny. Once again, congratulations to our nominating committee. Thank you. Before I move to approval of the minutes, I just do want to acknowledge and thank Lisa Snellings for really very vigorous leadership of our nominating and development committee. She has taken the charge very seriously, been very successful. And also, I think as Monique Veal and Tricia sort of challenged all of us connected to the urban ministry to act on that mission in our own work. Lisa has supported the board itself to examine its own practices, its own ways of doing business, so that we too are engaged in the individual reflection and the group reflection necessary for us to play our part in advancing our new mission. So Lisa, thank you. The board owes you a lot of gratitude for your really exceptional leadership of that committee. So
Oh,
thank you.
It's been my honor. Thank you.
Let me now call for approval of the minutes of last year's annual meeting. You have the minutes in your annual report. And so I invite approval of those minutes. Tom, do you want to make that motion?
I so move.
And Lisa's gone off screen, so I'm going to second it. And Lisa, second. Would you second?
Second.
Thanks a lot. So it's been moved and seconded. So can we have a vote to approve the minutes from our meeting of last year? Unsurprisingly, the motion is passed. Thank you. And I'm going to now, it's my pleasure to turn this part of the business meeting over to Tom Roos, our treasurer. Tom had the challenge of stepping in for our Alan Cody, our longtime treasurer. And Tom has, we've not missed a beat. And Tom, I want to thank you for the really strong work that you're doing chairing the Finance Committee, and look forward to hearing your report.
Thank you, Carla. Vinny, you're going to put some slides up? So I'm going to just give a brief report on the financial results of the UUM for fiscal year 2024. The fiscal year ends April 30th. So we're just beginning fiscal year 2025, and I'll speak very briefly about our budget for the forthcoming year. Next slide, please. So there are a lot of numbers on this page. I would just draw your attention to the first column for starters. So this was our budget for the fiscal year, and just so you get a sense of how we look at our financial opportunities. Our budget was to draw revenues of $1.58 million from the various revenue line items you can see here. And the budget had called for expenses significantly higher than those revenues of $2.3 million, with the gap of $722,000 to be covered by our draw from our investment accounts. We have the great good fortune of having a pretty sizable portfolio of investments, and we have a policy to draw 5% of an average balance of those investments. Therefore, we end up the year, according to our budget, with a break-even operating income 0. We have an operating deficit of 722. We draw 722 from investments at 0. How did we actually do in the fiscal year? Well, as in all years, we did a little better in some areas than we thought, and didn't do quite as well in others. So on the revenue side, as you can see, we had $1.357 million in total revenue. I'll talk a little bit about the causes for that, but we had a $224,000 shortfall against our budget. The counterpoint to that is that we managed expenses very well, so we came in with fewer expenses than budget, $2.15 million instead of the 2.3. So our operating income deficit, instead of the 722 per budget, now I'm in the second column, was 797,000. So we had to draw down $75,000 more to net ourselves off at 0. So that's how we ended the year with a $75,000 unanticipated gap, which again, through our sizable investment portfolio, we were able to make a draw and cover that off, ending the year with a balanced budget. Fiscal year 25, simply point out that most of the line items, at least the aggregate line items on revenue and expenses, are very, very similar to our budget for fiscal year 24. So we're not anticipating major changes in really any of the categories. And we're going to end up with a 0 net operating income by virtue of drawing $724,000 out of our portfolio. Next slide, then, Vinny. So just to give a little bit of color commentary, as I alluded to, the revenue was below our budget, and the primary reason for that was a shortfall in our donations and grants. So we know where our challenge is. We know where the gap is coming from. Good news is that the board contributions, which is a not insignificant line item, met our budget goal. And as I noted, we drew an additional 75,000, so we balanced our budget by the end of the fiscal year. So as we look at learnings from the past year and what we need to do in fiscal year 25, one of our observations was that the tremendous work to fundraise for the Meeting House restoration, and all compliments and kudos to Mary Margaret and her team, that's been pretty well completed now. So inevitably, there's a diversion of focus from fundraising for current year activities to fundraising for the capital improvements on our Meeting House. So now that that's completed, we feel confident that we'll have more time and focus and resource available for our fiscal year 25 direct operating fundraising. However, that said, now we have this wonderful Meeting House and other extensive renovations on the campus. We do need to anticipate creating funding to maintain and even improve some of those going forward. So this fundraising challenge doesn't really come to an end, but we now can focus on some different things besides just the Meeting House. So some of the changes and anticipated improvements in our processes are to have some additional cultivation events, such as house parties, to try to bring in new donors. And because of our additional focus, increased focus on youth programming, it really does give us an opportunity to confidently go try to solicit grants from organizations and entities that are supportive of youth programs. So we look to increasing our grant success and results during fiscal year 25 for youth programming. On the expense side, as I noted, the budget, we improved upon our budget. We had expenses 7% less than what we anticipated. Much of this was from the lag that we often have when people do leave the organization. It takes us a while to fill those spots. So there's kind of a hiring lag. We do, however, still have ongoing increases in expenses, particularly in such areas as our insurance or audit fees, and the professional fees continue to grow. So going into fiscal year 25, the Meeting House is very much near completion. We now need to look at how to really utilize that, both to support our mission and benefit the community, but also to help perhaps raise revenues from events and other activities in the Meeting House. So there will be a task force committee put together to study how will we have a plan around the cultivation and utilization of our Meeting House to help us on the expense side of our budget. We also noted that we have not really successfully looked at our income and expenses on a seasonal basis. We don't spend exactly the same amount each month. Things are seasonalized, as are our revenues. We want to make sure that we budget accordingly on a monthly basis, so we might have a little quicker early warning in case there are any issues we need to address. And then finally, I would say that Mary Margaret and her team have done an exemplary job of managing their budgets. They put together thoughtful budgets. They manage them very carefully, as you can see from our expense activities that were better than the budget plan. And so we just continue to keep that management focus in place. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce the Reverend David Egan to present his report on the Congregational Engagement Task Force. So David?
Thank you, Tom, for that detailed fiscal report. I appreciate there's people like you who understand numbers such as you do. That's not one of my strengths, so thank you for all your good work. Instead, I am on the Congregational Task Force, the committee to engage our congregations in working with the UU Urban Ministry. And I have a unique position because since I'm both on the board here at the Urban Ministry and a minister out in our congregation in Medfield, Massachusetts, I have an idea of what it's like to engage with the Urban Ministry and all that entails. So as Reverend Mary Margaret mentioned and others earlier, since our adoption of our new vision and mission a few years ago, it has sort of shifted the way our congregations are invited to engage with the Urban Ministry to more of a partnership rather than, a one-off or a more simplified or simplistic way of engaging with urban ministry. So because of that, it has shifted sort of what we're looking for our delegates to do as they engage with urban ministry. Through this process, we've surveyed delegates, ministers, staff of the urban ministry, community leaders, to develop a more cohesive way in which we can develop those more interactive partnerships that we're looking for. So now I'd ask Vinny to share the new job description that we created. All right, I hope you can all see that. So there you can see at the top is our new mission and vision that was referenced earlier. And just to be clear, this is referred to as a job description for delegates. We understand that you're all volunteers and that there is a lot here, but understand that these are more suggestions on a variety of ways that you can become engaged and help your congregations to become engaged. We do not mean to imply that all of these things need to be done. So as we go through here, you can read this. There are 5 different ways that we can see that delegates can engage with the urban ministry: through participating, things like joining one of our many tours, participating in the monthly book club. The community conversations are a great way to engage. Attend an RYP showcase, enjoy one of the concerts, be a greeter at one of our UU Urban Ministry events, join a task force, donate to the annual appeal. And just to be clear, as delegate, your job is not to do all of those things, but instead to invite members of your congregation to participate in those things. Also through communicating, encourage your congregation to invite Mary Margaret to preach at your church. We do that every year in Medfield, and it's always a hit. I'd highly recommend that. Host an information table on the UU Urban Ministry at your social hour. Invite staff to meet with your social action or racial justice committee. Again, highly recommended. In a former congregation, before I was a minister, I was a chair of the social justice committee, and working with the UU Urban Ministry can be not only helpful, but help you figure out what to do in your own congregation. There's lots of good work happening at the urban ministry, and we'd love to partner with what's happening at your congregation. You can read some other ways to communicate with your congregation. We're also looking for organizing. As mentioned earlier, support BIPOC-led community partners like the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute, City Life Vita Urbana, Dee Dee's Cry, and Page Academy. Help recruit members who are willing to provide technical and other support to Roxbury-based small businesses and organizations that are partnering with the urban ministry. Invite members of your congregation to join you at events at the urban ministry. Organize a virtual or in-person watch party for those community conversations. Let's see, what else? Inspire members to become customers of Black-owned businesses that the UU Urban Ministry lifts up through commercials, tours, and its website. Finally, fundraising. Obviously, that's critical to the continued work that we're all doing. So there's fundraising efforts like our annual appeal, the Pews Project, Mother's Day cards, introduce the UU Urban Ministry staff to philanthropic congregants, share congregation-specific grant opportunities for operating supports, design congregation-specific ways to raise money for the urban ministry, identify congregants with expertise and development who might be willing to actively support our efforts. And finally, as we've seen a bit tonight, governance and voting. Elect delegates at large and members of the board of directors. Thank you all who have already voted tonight. Vote on bylaw revisions recommended by the board, and approve any sale of real estate property used by the urban ministry's work as recommended by the board. So as you can see, that's an exhaustive list of ways that you as a delegate can help us live more fully into our vision and mission. and we appreciate all you do. And if you have any further questions, I'd invite you to reach out to any of the staff here at the Urban Ministry. We look forward to working with you all. And now I would turn it back to Carla.
Great. Thank you, Dave. And thank you for the work that you and the others on the Congregational Engagement Task Force are doing to reshape, redefine, and support delegates and congregations to engage with the urban ministry. I just, as we move to the report of the chair, I just want to say a couple of things. First, I just would love it if we just reflect back to what we've heard since we convened nearly an hour and a half ago. So we heard our exceptional senior minister and executive director talk about progress being made to live into the mission, the near completion of the meeting house and the campus renovation and restoration. We heard Marie Padilla and watched an inspiring video about the long-standing program that continues to reinvent itself. We heard Reggie Walker and an RYP student, Wintana Tawald, and Shannon Sneidman from Michigan share their experiences. And again, the reinvention of those programs to align more fully with our mission. We heard Monique Veal and Tricia Brennan engage in a conversation about what these changes mean for engagement with the community and engagement with volunteers. We heard Lisa Snellings describing the development of the next generation of leadership for the Urban Ministries Board. We heard Tom Roos demonstrate the transparency of budgeting and finance and the thoughtful strategies in place to ensure sustainability and strong programming, the resources to provide strong programming. And we heard Dave talk about and share another way of looking at congregational engagement through the essential role of the delegate. I don't know about you, but it leaves me pretty inspired and excited. Makes it clear to me why I serve on this board and the hopes and dreams I think that this board has. We can't wait for the meeting house to open. We want to see all of you in person next year, hopefully at the meeting house where we can have our annual meeting and see each other in person. It really is an exciting time. And so I want to just conclude with some words that I shared in the board chair's report. Working to do our part to breathe life into the Urban Ministries' vision and mission is a privilege that board members savor. It affords us the opportunity to draw on our own and each other's reserves of persistence, constancy, and goodwill during these challenging times. As we do so, we are nourished, and we are grateful that you are partners with us in the work of the Urban Ministry. You delegates, my hope for you in the year ahead is that you too will find ways to nourish your spirit through deeper connection with the Urban Ministry as we open our meeting house once again. Thank you for being partners in this work, for supporting this work. We so appreciate you and the reality and the potential of deeper, stronger connections in the year to come. So thank you. I think that gives me an opportunity to call for the adjournment of the business meeting without objection. And I would invite Mary Margaret to deliver our benediction. Thank you, Mary Margaret.
Thank you, Carla. And I wanted just appreciate again the full board and the individual board members who bring such a commitment to this work. And I want to lift up Carla as a very strong partner as the board chair in this work. I'm very grateful to work with her. Before I give my benediction, I do want to just invite the limitation of the web is that I want to of the webinar is that I'd love to hear from you all. So if you feel so moved, you can go to the chat function, everyone who's participating. And there's a chat where you can select chatting with all, to chat with all. And maybe just share something that you hope, a way that you hope to move with the urban ministry, to connect with the urban ministry, to connect with your congregation next year, and just a hope that you have, and share it in the chat. It would be great just to hear your voices before we depart. So I'm going to invite you to just go down to the chat function and maybe a hope that you have for your work with the urban ministry. I'm going to again thank all the staff of the urban ministry, all the board members, and all the ministers of our congregations, and all the delegates. In our congregations lie some of the greatest potential of this organization, and it's part of what I continue to fall in love with about the urban ministry, is all the ways that we have an opportunity to make a difference in our work, and in large part because of you, our member congregations. So thank you for being part of our work. And I want to close our evening with words from Dag Hammarskjöld. And Dag Hammarskjöld was a former Secretary General of the United Nations. And he said, "To everything that has been, thank you. And to everything that is to come, yes." So may we carry that spirit of gratitude and openness into the next year together. Thank you for being here, everybody. Really grateful for you. I'm grateful to be part of this fine organization with you. Have a good night, everybody. I love all these comments. Thank you for sharing and adding your voices. It means a lot to hear from you. And I do hope that we will hear from you and see you next year in the meeting house. I love all these chats. We'll save them and keep reading them. Thank you, everybody. It's good to hear from you. And Annie said something before we go, and I meant to do this. Kudos to our behind the scenes person who pulled everything together, Vinnie Miles. Vinnie did an amazing work. And thank you, Annie, for reminding us to say kudos to Vinnie. Thank you, Vinnie. Well done. Vinnie rocks again, Lisa says. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.